Everybody, welcome to Michael Maher Live, the most original name show that I think anybody's probably ever come up with anywhere. And we just talk about what it's like for brands to keep pace in a very fast changing world. And that sounds super cliche, but we talk about all kinds of stuff. So we kind of have to keep it high level. Today on the show, I have with me Alex Yancher. He's the co-founder and CEO of Passport. In case you cannot read on your screen, for those of you who are visually impaired, I just helped you out for all you people that can't read. Maybe now you know, and you need to get some help. And there are plenty of great resources out there for you. Anyway, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate you being here. We were chatting a little bit beforehand. You're helping brands go global, which honestly, that's a great tagline. When you think about Donald Miller, I don't know how many people out there like know Story Brand, or now I think it's like Business Made Simple is his business. And he always talked about, if your name doesn't describe what you do, you have to be very clear with your tagline and keep it to like 3 to 5 words maybe. And if people do know what your name is, then you can kind of have fun. So like an example was he lives in Nashville, and I think it was in like 5 South or 3 5, I don't know, whatever the really nice neighborhood is there. He was saying there was a place called like The Barn, and it was like, we do hair, we do clothes.
Yeah,
that was their tagline. So it's like they had a kind of a weird name. People didn't know what they did, but it was like they clearly knew what they did based on their tagline. Like, we take brands global. That's very cool, and I get that. Give us a little bit of like practical application of that.
Yeah. By the way, it's such a good tagline that I made it my LinkedIn headline. I wrote.
Yeah, there you go. That's how I read it.
Yeah,
that's literally how I read it. It's so easy and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally. So, practical application. I mean, brands need a lot to go global. They need to make sure that they're in fiscal compliance, that there's regulatory compliance needs are met. Every country has their own FDA. You need to figure out how to ship the product back, how to ship the product there, and then how to ship the product back. Returns a whole beast of a problem to solve in international. And you have to do it all profitably, right? And every country has their own duty and tax regime where they're, assessing where the thing was made and charging you a certain amount. So it's kind of a lot. And that's like on the logistics side. There's also a bunch of stuff to do on the digital side as well. You have to, you don't want to lose out on the duty and tax that you have to pay Canadian customs. So you have to charge it on your website, making sure how much you charge on your website matches how much you ultimately get charged, So a lot goes into it. That's basically what we do. We basically help brands go global end to end. So we'll do their digital experience, we'll do their operations as well.
That can feel like a lot. And you said there's a lot that needs to be done, but do you feel like brands also might be overthinking it a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So
like they don't have to be the expert in it. They just need to accomplish those things. And maybe there's like maybe it's not, I don't know if I would call it imposter syndrome, but there's like I have to know everything in order to do this thing. Well, and arguably you don't.
Totally. 100%. Yes, every country has their own tax and duty regime, but they're looking at the same data. They're looking at where the thing was made, how much it cost, what else? How much it cost, where it was made, and
ingredients.
Ingredients, where it was made. So that data, once you clean that up and you get it right, and there's this universal code system called HS codes, where every broker around the world, they're just looking at a number to a certain extent as well. Yeah. Once you have all that information, it's actually pretty easy to turn on incrementally new countries. So there's this misconception of, I'm gonna have to redo this whole thing for Honduras, and then for Brazil. So I'll just do Canada and UK, And
do you hear that a lot? Just do Canada and UK?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's a shame. It's a shame because you have all the data, you have all the information. Yes, you yourself are not doing the international shipping. You're not driving it to the airport, getting on, what I mean? So you're hiring a company. Most companies like ours, we don't just do Canada and UK, we do 150 countries around the world. So you already have that partner that does the logistics. Shopify, most brands are on Shopify. They have this incredibly powerful solution called Shopify Markets, which lets you configure
Okay.
your pricing and your like the currency symbols on a market by market basis. So,
Okay.
okay, already on Shopify, doing one country is not that much harder. Doing 50 countries. So why leave all that money on the table? So I think that that's like a big misconception. Especially like given how advanced technology has gone. There's kind of no reason not to be live in like 150 countries at this point.
Yeah, I've heard that people don't like making money. Is that true?
I've never heard that.
Okay, cool. Then it must just be me. I think, yeah, I feel like brands probably think they have to have it all down and
Yeah.
understood. And there's a lot of you don't know what you don't know. On the, my agency Cartology, all we do is help brands win on Amazon. So we manage and grow that marketplace for brands. And honestly, every time I talk to these brands, some of them are doing millions of dollars of sales, and they just don't know what they don't know. And I feel for them, because you want to take a leap, you want to grow. And I think they're probably worried about two things. One is they're worried about being sold something that won't come to fruition. So I like to call that problem agency burn. You have an agency that overpromises and underdelivers, or they just say they're going to do something they don't. Agency burn kind of sounds like a bad venereal disease. Fortunately, it is curable, but you have to work with a great agency, someone who knows what they're doing. But I think they're worried about that, but also just maybe worried about getting caught with their pants down, like not having. Speaking of venereal diseases, they're worried about having issues or problems that they won't be able to fix or solve, or getting in hot water. And so like, is the 5% sales lift that I could see, is it worth the risk? How do you, when people come to you with that, how do you assuage some of those fears?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're valid fears. So first,
okay.
I think we have to walk through on a case by case basis, because there are some products like dog food, for example, or baby formula that is very heavily regulated, and there are some horror stories that are out there that are in people's imaginations. If you're selling like apparel, those fears are unfounded, and the person just needs to be just this is what we do internally, is we just send them the regulations. You can clearly see here, you don't need to have the tags in French, for example, for Canada, even though you may have heard that in Canada, all products need to have French on them. There's truth in that. That's where it gets a little confusing, because you know where a lot of the misconception is, Michael, is that
the internet.
No, yes, that's the first place to look. But in international specifically, there's this like very interesting divide, and it really confuses people in the market. And I get why. So when you want to sell goods in country, so on a shelf in like a Walmart, or domicile inventory in, say, Amazon Canada, or like TikTok is not in Canada right now, but when they launch in Canada, it's going to be like this. You have to have inventory physically in Canada, and that has a different litmus test for compliance than when you're shipping things cross-border.
Okay.
When you ship things cross-border, the way the government looks at it, the way Canadian government looks at it, is that it's like you're a tourist, from Canada, came to the US, you went into a store, you bought something, and you're carrying it back to Canada. Are you not allowed to do that? Of course you're allowed to do that. You're an adult. You're allowed to make a decision. You don't need it to be in French, But if you want to sell goods locally, there's a whole slew of obligations and requirements. And sometimes those two things overlap. So for like, baby formula or dog food, the same rules that apply for cross-border apply for in-country, but usually it's not like that. Usually it's very stringent for in-country and very lax for cross-border.
I just always feel like anytime, and this is true for Amazon, there's always a lot more eyes on something and a lot more regulatory pressure on things that are in or on the body. So anything that's going to be ingested or anything that's put on your body, it seems like those things tend to be watched more and tend to have a lot more things go wrong. And the inevitable, what can go wrong will go wrong. What is that?
Murphy's
third law. Murphy's law. Thank you. I was thinking of one of Newton's laws. That's not what it is. Murphy's law. I think inevitably it does happen. Like something
Yeah.
does go wrong. And so if you're anticipating that and you have all of the paperwork that you need and you're prepped and ready to go and you are prepared for that, it doesn't come as a shock. Just in the same way that I've said, like communication is really important, being prepared is really important. So setting those expectations of, hey, just so you know, this could be a problem. We're ready to fight it when it does. When it does pop up, it's not a huge threat, and maybe it doesn't get your heart rate to elevate. Just like I've said, if your spouse is leaving the house and you're like, hey, just so you know, there's traffic on I-9, like be aware. They're going to be a lot less pissed than if they hit that and realize like, oh, did my husband just come home on I-9? Why didn't that tell me that there was traffic there? So like, I mean, they could still be pissed, but you're going to have those expectations are going to help you to not be as frantic. So it sounds like you're helping them set expectations and just dispel stuff like, yeah, hey, what you're saying is true, but also it's not true across the board. And here's what is the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something to doing too much is also bad, you know? Like if we can save a brand from going down rabbit holes of filing for things that they don't need to file, we've come into situations where they were knee deep in regulatory filings that they just didn't need, and maybe somebody in Europe was confused or upsold them on something, and they're doing all these registrations, and it's like, that's also not great. It's also not great to need a registration and not have it and be live in the market. They could shut you down. They could prevent you from ever selling there again. And you don't want to close off this, addressable opportunity for yourself. So both are bad. I would personally index a little bit towards just, making sure that you're in compliance with, with the law, et cetera. Yeah, why not? Just index a little bit there. But I wouldn't go so far to now to do like all these like extra tests and registrations where you don't need it. So I think that's like that is, a role that we play both, in our respective companies and industries, just to prevent somebody and putting them on the journey. Like you said, a lot of it is just managing expectations. It's not even, it's so bad. It's just, you want to know what to expect,
Sure. All right. We like to play a game on here called Horror Story. So you tell us one horror story. And by play a game, I mean, I just made this up. But do you have any crazy horror stories of people who have like gone live and maybe they didn't have everything they needed, and if maybe they'd worked with you, it would have prevented that from happening?
This one, it's a recent horror story. This joint merger of last mile carriers here in the US went bankrupt, like literally 10 days ago. I'll bring it back to Passport and how it relates to us. But so this entity called Fast Group, it was actually on paper a very good idea. You're basically taking three, competitors to, like, say, a UPS, last mile delivery company, and they have a certain amount of leverage and scale and like delivery. We're in the business, we're in the international delivery business. Like, I'll tell you, scale is everything. The more you have, the faster you can be, the cheaper your costs, all this kind of stuff. So each one of them had like X amount of scale. 3X is much better than X in the world of, logistics and scale. So on paper, made a ton of sense. But couldn't get their costs under control. I'm not really sure, to be honest, exactly what happened there. But somebody recently asked me, why don't we at Passport go into local delivery here in the US? Because we do local delivery to a certain extent with a multi-carrier strategy, all that, but still we do local delivery in Canada and UK and in a lot of markets. And somebody's like, oh, why don't you do that in the US? And I was like, look at this company. What do they know that, or what do I know that they don't know? Just horror story, just to like leave customers and employees, in a tough spot, and obviously the owners, is just the whole thing is like rough, and it's a very competitive market here in the US. So I don't know, just kind of interesting situation happening right now.
What's any like notable success stories of people that maybe had fears and once they got over them, there was a big win on the other side of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, all you mentioned this earlier. I think it's like a great category to call out here, but like anything that's like edible, like ingestible, and then you put on your body, people are always nervous about the
Okay.
regulatory compliance around it because of like FDA.
Which makes
So
sense because I mean, people have gotten in trouble for problems or issues, or even it's just bad press. Even if it's not a fine, just the bad
yeah,
press alone can suck.
yeah, exactly. And this was actually one of the categories that was coming to mind for me when I was mentioning that, like in country, yeah, you need to have tests if you want to carry it on local shelves, in a Walgreens in Canada or whatever. Yes, you do need to have the tests, and you need to have, the labeling with the local warning requirements and in French and so forth. But when you do cross border, it's actually not like that. Cross border, you don't need any of those things. Is just not regulated the same way. So, we work with OneSkin; they're killing it internationally. We work with Road Beauty,
Okay.
which is owned by Hailey Bieber's brand, is incredible like growth internationally. So, anybody who's not doing international in your cosmetics, you're worried about regulatory compliance, definitely reach out to me. We'll take care of you on that.
Okay. What do you think brands should know that maybe they don't already know from what you've shared? Obviously, you've said that there's some fear maybe that people shouldn't have. There's a lot that's going on. So there is a lot that needs to be done, but maybe, it's a valid fear, but not founded in reality. Is there anything that you're just like, you could say one thing to a brand who's like, yeah, I'm worried about going international. What's one thing you would say to them? They just like, oh man, okay, cool. Glad I know that now.
Yeah, I would say that, okay, we kind of talked about like logistics, we do that, all that. But what I'm so excited by is the new AI capabilities that are going to help brands internationalize the top of funnel and create these incredible international experiences. Snap your fingers, put in some prompts, translate everything better than it's ever been done before. You could translate slang now essentially with LLMs.
Okay.
And it just opens up the world. Like if international before, from when I started Passport 9 years ago to this day forward, has been somewhere between, like, let's say 10%, 10 to 15%. And some brands that really kill, they do 25%. I think that now that number is going to creep up to 25%, because the top of funnel can really be replicated. Whatever you're doing in the US, you can do it internationally, with some of the AI capabilities that are out there now. So, it's just something to look out for, that the addressable opportunity is even bigger than it's just the biggest it's ever been, in my opinion.
What is AI actually going to do for these brands?
Like a million things. I mean, like, let's start with like ads. Take my American ads and Canadiify it. So instead of showing
Ooh, is
statue,
that a word? Did you just come up with that word?
I
Canadiify it?
coined it. Yeah, and
And
put in like a
trademark, you heard it here
maple leaf.
first.
Put a maple leaf instead of a hamburger or something, whatever. Like trade the symbols between countries, and they could also do translation better. This has been a complaint about translation, partially why we don't really do translation, because it's a very it's a problem that I think at this point should be solved with AI and LLMs.
There's a localization that's needed in these translations.
Yeah, that's
It
right.
can't
I
just
agree.
be generic. So do you feel like AI is capable of doing that
Yeah.
localization that's needed? Okay.
I don't even just feel like I've seen it in the wild,
Okay.
and you could kind of like play around with it with like any of your Spanish speaking friends or whatever other language. Just like say something in slang and see if they hear it in slang in the other language. And it just, that's how it works now. It's like, it's just incredible. So some of that
Okay.
like nuance that gets lost with ads, like puns or like event-based stuff, like Valentine's Day is coming up, you know what I mean? Like, do they celebrate that in other cultures? That's something that LLMs are incredibly good at. They could really replicate that experience in the nuance of it, in another market.
Should I start a brand and just go international with you right now? Is that what you're saying?
Let's do it, Michael. Let's run it together.
Oh, what about, so you talked about food, you talked about maybe like supplements, things in your body. What about alcohol? Do you work with any alcohol brands?
No, alcohol's tough.
Okay.
The taxes are ridiculous,
Okay.
like ridiculous,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't really work. And the shipping is very expensive and hard. We don't do it. We try to make it a thing at some point and just kind of gave up on it. It just, the economics didn't make sense.
The juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you've said some stuff that I've just seen you post a little bit about tariffs and really providing an informational point of view. Like, hey, just here's stuff to be looking out, to be thinking about. And there's like, obviously there's political lean to these things, but like, it didn't seem like there was a lot of politicization of it, which was cool. You're just providing information to people. Is that true? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I'm trying not to be, you know what I mean?
Okay.
What's the point? You know?
I agree with you. I think it's good to be involved in politics. I also think that we should be able to disagree and still live our lives together and not hate each other because we see things differently. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But what should people be? It seems like this week you said is really important when it comes to tariffs. Like, what should brands be thinking about? Should they be anticipating some negative changes? Should they be maybe kind of less fearful than they should be? What are some things they should be thinking about this week?
Well, for starters, today was supposed to be the day that the Supreme Court was going to rule on the constitutionality of Trump's tariffs.
Okay.
And it's a big landmark case. It's, obviously making headlines. They punted on it for the third time. I'm not sure
Wow.
I'm not sure if there's anything to that. It might just be a procedural thing. There might be some, hints of what that means, but I'm not sure what it means, to be honest with you. I think the betting markets would be the best place to see. I'm not, and I haven't looked at them today yet, but actually I'd be interested to see if you pull that up, Michael, on your end. But on it's been trading at about like 25% likelihood of Trump winning. You know what I mean? So it bounces around between 20 and 30. But yeah,
is there all those tariffs are executive orders?
They are, yeah.
Which can be, I don't think people realize that one, they're kind of stepping out. They're allowed, but they're stepping outside of the normal process of creating law, and they can be overturned. I mean, the same thing happened when Biden was president. There were some big executive orders that were overturned. One of them being during the pandemic, when it was allowed for companies to fire people for not having for not getting a shot. Yeah. For not getting a jab. Sorry. I thought you said job for a second. Yeah. For not getting a jab. And then it turned out that was unconstitutional. And I mean, that affected and impacted a lot of people. Totally. So I don't think people realize that those executive orders really are, they're a very quick Band-Aid.
Yeah. The thing is about this one, is that he has multiple avenues to enact tariffs. Outside of the avenue that he's on right now. So as the saying goes, if one door closes, another door opens. So I don't know if this is going to change anything in practice, at least for the foreseeable future. He could also go through Congress and get it passed, and we'll see what happens in the midterms and et cetera, et cetera. So this is far from over, irrespective of what the Supreme Court rules. Obviously, if they rule in favor of Trump, then it is over. But if they don't rule in favor of Trump, it just opens up 10 other things that, a Pandora's box of other possibilities here. So that's happening. That's like, I guess we're going to hear this time next week. I think that's the schedule that they're on, or not, or the following week. And then the other big thing is, actually there's two big things. So first of all, this whole year, it was like supposed to be the calmer year. We're kind of putting the trade war and tariffs behind us in 2025, and we're able to take a breather, but it's not happening that way. The Iran thing, Trump on Truth Social said anybody that's trading with Iran is going to get hit with 10%. And a lot of countries trade with Iran, right? A lot of big countries trade with Iran. China trades with Iran, China trades with Iran. That's a big one. I think like most of the Asian countries in some form or fashion trade with Iran, but China, which is a fourth, of our imports still, or something like that, trades with Iran. So what does that mean? So 10% higher on our goods now from China. What does
Yeah.
this mean with like other, deals that we've made with them? And then is it even happening? Like I'm to this day, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure
I
where
think that's
it
my
stands.
same position is will this even go into effect?
Okay.
Because there is a
Yeah.
lot of, it feels like there's a lot of bravado in the negotiation
Yeah.
of things. People have
Right.
talked about like the art of the deal,
Right.
but it's like,
Right. Right.
let's don't panic. Let's wait
Right.
until things are
Right.
actually finalized. Now, there were some
Right.
people who were impacted by some of those, very, very crazy
Yeah.
large tariffs in the very beginning, where I think it was, 50, 100%, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
There were ways around it. A lot of our clients, we talked about putting stuff in a bonded warehouse
Sure.
to, avoid getting those tariffs. But I think just
Yeah.
like, let's wait and see what
Yeah.
actually happens.
Yeah. This is how this is how I feel about this Greenland thing. Like
Okay.
we're not going to war. We're not going to war. I can promise you that. We're not going to war over Greenland,
Yeah.
These tariffs, again, this is like his like vintage Trump playbook.
Yeah.
People who kind of know it at this point, in game theory, like you can't really do this kind of thing when there's multiple games because people are going to be like, wait, he did this last time. Let's just all not react. Let's not do anything. We've seen him do this 5 times. Let's not do anything. Let's wait him out, Let's not call his bluff. But no, that's not how it happens,
But I think it's because I think there's a psychological aspect, which is like people want to be, and I think I really don't know. He might know this, he might not, but like people want to be heard. They don't want to be seen as wrong. So they feel like and in an economy where being first to market, and like a news economy of being first to market feels like the most important thing, although it is arguably not, because people get stuff wrong so often. Being first to market or responding quickly, oftentimes I think does you a detriment.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the media just doesn't know how to report on like multi-dimensional situations playing out. Like it is a juicy headline. Trump enacts 10% tariff
Right.
on Netherlands, whatever. But like the real headline is Trump, he's done this before. Like
yeah, it's a headline that's so much longer to write, and that people
he's always pulls back.
read.
Like you need something kind of clickbaity, so you're kind of like fitting the like the message.
Yeah,
but that's not really what's happening.
You're fitting the format of what people can digest, which is read the headlines.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and all these other people's podcasts that are long format, multiple hours in some cases, that people are watching these instead of legacy news media, because it does not tell the whole story. It's often inaccurate, and there's not a lot of, everyone's like most trusted news source. And it's like, yeah, but no one believes that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's tough. I mean, maybe they should be creating more long form stuff, but it's tough because, that is like, you can't only have this as a headline, you know what I mean? So they got to go with something. But it's too bad. Because it's just like, it's not really what's happening. Maybe it plays into what Trump wants to do. So, he kind of wants that as a headline. He wants the other side to panic, Yeah.
You ever seen the episode of The Office where Michael Scott has the watermark that shows up and it's like, a cherished cartoon mouse is having, sex with a cartoon duck or whatever, which is like supposed to be, I'm guessing, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Which, as a Disney fan, it doesn't really bother me, but it's kind of funny. But they can't even use those like actual characters because they're trademarked. Anyway, he's like, business does business as it should, apologizes to fan or to customer, makes things right. It's like this really long title. That's what you're talking about. We need longer titles because people are only reading the titles anyway. Just make the article 2 sentences long to explain the things. And then you honestly, like a news site where you tell the whole story in 2 sentences with the nuance, and it's just big and bold. Boom, now you're done. That's the new news site.
Yeah. Totally. No, I love it. That makes sense.
Alex, if people want to, you've been great, man. And even if you weren't, I wouldn't tell you to your face, but you have really been great. I'm just kidding. You're having fun, and you've given us information on everything from tariffs to going global to, you know, how people can integrate with Shopify. So there's a lot there. People want to know more about what it is that you're doing. Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I try to post a lot about what's going on in the world of trade and tariffs. My name, Alex Yancher, just look that up. My email, alex@passportglobal.com. And on Twitter, my name again, just Alex Yancher.
All right, people, you heard it here first. Alex Yancher, you want to go global, or you want to know about tariffs or how to write a proper news article? Find them on LinkedIn or find them on X. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks, Michael.
Cheers.